From WBAY TV, your first alert station. Action 2 News at 4:30 starts now.
These are the beaches of Normandy, France today. Picturesque, serene, rather inviting, right? 80 years ago, that was not the case. D-Day marked the beginning of the liberation of Europe from Nazi Germany, and the cost on that day alone was just over 4,400 Allied soldiers killed in action. This is a day to remember and honor as the number of survivors of World War II is dwindling. But on Friday, 70 World War II veterans are going to return to France, some for the first time in 80 years. American Airlines is making this help with the aid of Old Glory Honor Flight. The Appleton-based charity was chosen from a number of organizations nationwide to help make this 9-day mission possible. And we want to introduce you to two of the veterans making this trip. This is 100-year-old Vaughn Collicott from Legend Lake, that's near Kashina. He enlisted in the Navy at 18. A year and a half later, he was working in the combat center of the destroyer USS Meredith on D-Day. Now, its job was to escort landing craft filled with tanks to Utah Beach and then protect other vessels in the invasion fleet. On June 7th, the Meredith was called in close to the beach to shell German positions. And in the early morning hours of June 8th, an explosion rocked the ship, killing nearly 40 crew members. It sank 2 days later. Vaughn finished the war in the Pacific. Meet 100-year-old Eugene Jack Kraszewski from Pulaski. He was 18 when he was drafted into the Army. And when he was 20, he and his mobile anti-aircraft unit drove off landing craft on Utah Beach weeks after D-Day. His unit was in the battle the rest of the war, including the Battle of the Bulge and crossing the Rhine. His unit was also among the first to arrive at Buchenwald, one of those Nazi concentration camps. They are two of the four current Wisconsinites making this return trip to Normandy.
Well, I'd be happy I'm back again, that I didn't stay there, so. Yeah, I thank God every day that I came back home, because a lot of my boys didn't, so.
Will those buddies be on your mind when you're there?
Probably.
And this to me is going to be a trip of a lifetime. Let's put it this way, my reaction is going to be a lot different than the reaction of the Germans when they found out that there was going to be 5,000 ships coming after them.
First it was France, and that was, I'll never forget that. I don't know if we were there a week or 2 days or 10 days, time I didn't know. Anyhow, some ladies brought us some vegetable soup for our unit. That was the best soup I ever ate in my life. And they didn't have anything, but they shared it with us.
They were grateful.
Oh, were they ever.
To me, it's going to be an honor to be able to get back to be on the land in France. Because they notified me and 300 other ones, and they said that we're supposed to go to Eau Claire, and this was several years ago. That there was somebody there from France that had a certificate they wanted to give me and all these other 300 veterans. That's freedom from the Germans.
Completely inside all the time, except after the war was over. We were 24/7 in the weather.
A couple nights in a barn, maybe, if you were lucky? Never.
Never in a barn, never inside of a building.
For how many months?
Oh, from August to May when the war ended. And we never changed clothes because never washed up, because how are you going to wash up when the creeks were froze? And nobody brought us water, just water to drink. And at zero weather, I'm not taking my clothes off to wash off, and neither did the rest. So we wore all the clothes we had because it was so damn cold. And that was 24 hours, 7, and never stopped, that cold. Once it came on,
When I came out of the IC room, it was dark. There was 4 or 5 guys that was burnt black, they were bleeding. Can you imagine that? And one of the sailors had a Bible and a red flashlight, he was reading. And and I could hear people screaming for help in the water, but it was dark, I couldn't see where they were. Now that alone is a different grieving. It's hard to describe. You know, you want to help somebody, you can't see them, you don't know where they're at, but you can hear them.
When I saw that gas chamber, there was all cyanide bombs, cans left all around, and anyhow, they didn't get time to clean them up before we got there. So anyhow, and the able bodies would take them out of there and load them on wagons, and they'd haul them over, maybe from here to barn to a crematorium. So I went there, looked in the crematorium, opened the doors and looked in, and just bones, few bones, you know. But I didn't know they were doing that. So that made us more anxious to get rid of Hitler and his regime.
Do you think your generation, because of what they did, and
It's never going to be ever be duplicated.
no, it's not. It's called the greatest generation. And you're going to be treated as a hero when you set foot in France, as you should be. But I'm curious, do you think you're a hero?
Well, I don't know whether I'm a hero or not. I just do what I just did what had to be done, regardless of what it was. That's what that's the way I figured it.
I don't know why you're doing this all for me.
You don't know why?
No, I don't deserve it.
Why not?
Hey, I was doing what I did, what I was told to do, and there was, 9 million of us. Why should I get the credit, you know? But,
Because what you did wasn't easy.
well,
And living this long is not easy.
well, that guy upstairs took care of that.
The other current Wisconsinites that are going to join Jack and Vaughn, Reynolds Sumter. He's going to be the oldest on this trip, 107 years old, a former merchant marine. Reynolds lives in Pigeon Falls, and he still drives. Lawrence Eckstein will turn 100 next month. The Amro resident served in the famed 10th Mountain Division, fighting in Italy. And Frank Conkey now lives in Illinois, but he was born and raised in Oshkosh. He forged his mom's signature to enlist at age 16. He served in the 101st Airborne, parachuting into France the night before D-Day. And when we come back, you're going to meet some of the special people from Old Glory Honor Flight who are vital to making this a successful and safe trip for these veterans.
We are an incredibly proud partner of American Airlines, and we are an incredibly proud organization to be part of the Honor Flight Network. So to be chosen and asked to help out really is just an honor for us. We know that the 80th anniversary of Normandy is really the last of its kind to take our World War II veterans. So we've just been humbled to be a part of it, to be a partner to American Airlines, to help to recruit those veterans, help train the Guardians, and provide the medical staff that's coming from the Appleton area.
And we are joined now by a member of that medical staff. Jamie Lotus is a nurse practitioner, and you've been involved in Old Glory now for almost 10 years. How many flights is that?
16.
16. Any internationals?
No.
All right, so this is the first time you'll be doing that. I'm curious, take us back to when you first heard about this project. What was your reaction? And then how quickly did your reaction as a medical professional kick in when you thought of the age group I'm going to be working with and the sheer volume of what's involved in this trip?
So Diane asked me almost a year ago about the trip. She said, mark it on your calendar, it's happening. And as we got closer, we organized a medical team of physicians, ER physicians, people that we knew and trusted, and here we are, 12 medical team members later, and we're confident that we can do this.
So that confidence comes from preparation, and everybody I've
Yes.
talked to leading up to this has talked about how exhaustive that preparation is. Take us behind the
Yes.
curtain a little bit as you try and prepare for all the possible things that might happen to these folks who are essentially patients you have never met before.
So we've developed protocols. We've made a medical questionnaire that we sent out to all the veterans, all the guardians, and we received that back along with their medical records. So they had to be seen by one of their physicians prior to the trip, prior to us saying yes, they can go on the trip.
So your experiences in geriatrics, when you
Yes.
assembled this medical team, how much was that a priority? I know one of the doctors is very heavily involved in stroke prevention, awareness, treatment. So this team, how did you tailor it to this age group?
So we have a variety of team members from nursing, ER, emergency room nurses, nurses that have worked in nursing homes, and teachers, and an EMT, and 2 primary care physicians, as well as the 2 ER physicians.
Will you be able to step back from your role as a medical professional, even for a moment, to kind of witness what really is the last of its kind trip? We heard Diane mention that. I mean, this is a really significant and unique moment, and yet you have to be dialed in to your patients 24/7.
I hope we have that opportunity. I hope we're not busy. We're prepared for everything. We've developed lists of supplies that we've brought along with us to Normandy, medications, protocols, and I hope we don't have to use any of them.
Right.
I'm hoping we can enjoy the time with the veterans and get to know them and their stories.
We've shared a bunch of pictures during this interview of you from past honor flights, and this one in particular says a lot to me and others who have seen it. And it's a classic case of a picture can say 1,000 words. But in your words, why do you do this?
I love it. I love giving back to the veterans. This is an honor for me to be part of. Every single flight is different. We have an amazing team. It's an amazing cause. To see the veterans come back from Washington, D.C., a changed person is why we do it.
Jamie, thank you so much. Have a great trip.
Thank you. We're excited.
And when we come back, we'll visit with the American Airlines executive in charge of this extraordinary trip, and Brad turns back the clock to show us how the Allied forces forecasted the weather in Normandy ahead of the invasion. And we welcome in Randy Stillinger. He is the manager of military and veterans initiatives for American Airlines. So Randy, let's just start with the obvious, why American wanted to put this trip together. And the second part of that, how is it different from some other trips you have put together with veterans?
You know, I was asked a simple question, and it was basically why? Why are we going to do this? And my short answer was, well, there's not really going to be an 85th anniversary of D-Day. Time is running out for these veterans. The average age of the veterans in our group is 100.8. So the time is now to get them on these trips, to tell their stories. Time is of the essence. We consider it a privilege to be able to do this with the world's largest airline.
One of the folks, the organizations that is helping you make this happen, as we've said often on this program today, is Old Glory Honor Flight. There are many organizations around the country that do what Old Glory Honor Flight does, yet you chose them. Talk about that decision and tell us why.
So every year we meet up with Old Glory Honor Flight. We donate an aircraft. We do a special honor flight out of the Oshkosh Air Show every July. So we work with Diane and her team up there in Appleton every year, and we've gotten to know them and we trust them. They have tremendous experience with the veterans.
Randy, we've talked to Diane and the group about the preparations for this, and they have kind of gone through all their scenarios with the medical team. We've talked to them on this program today. So how do you take all that and tailor this trip? I mean, the itinerary, there's a lot going on this trip. It's not just going to Normandy. They'll be in Paris. There are events going on. There are dinners. There will be ceremonies. How do you tailor all this, given what you already said? The average age of these folks is just under 101 years old.
Yeah, you kind of need to put yourself in their shoes. What are they going to be experiencing? What are their requirements? What are their dietary needs? What are how fast are they going to move? I mean, everything's got to be slower. Our primary care is to make sure that they are safe, healthy, and happy. It has to be our priority. So slow down, make sure that they're well taken care of, and cater the whole schedule to that. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. We've done other missions like this. The last one was probably the 80th anniversary of D-Day. I'm sorry, the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
Where we took 63 World War II veterans to Pearl Harbor about 2.5 years ago. So we do have experience with this. We do these missions domestically throughout the year.
So let me ask you, with all of that you've put into this, how will you measure success?
I think success is, we want to make sure that the veterans feel honored. They need to feel honored. That's the primary mission of this. I'd say the secondary mission is to make sure that their stories are told. There's been a lot of interest in this story, and we want to be able to facilitate those, tell those stories. We're bringing in addition to the 70 veterans, we're bringing 6 Medal of Honor recipients along with us, plus a 52-member choir. These are cadets and midshipmen from our nation's academies. And they're going to be paired up with these veterans, and they're going to spend time, so they're going to hear the stories. And it's incumbent on them as future officers in the United States military to take those stories and pass them on and make sure that their sacrifice and service is not forgotten.
Randy, we appreciate the time. We appreciate what you folks have done. Just from speaking with our veterans, they are so excited about this. Have a great trip.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate the help.
3 brilliant minutes, sponsored by Sinclair Heating and Cooling for 24/7 comfort on call.
All right, we welcome in Brad for this special edition of Action 2 News at 4:30, and I really challenged you on this one.
You wanted to talk about what they had for weather forecasting.
Because it was crucial.
It was, but much has happened over the past 80 years, and I thought before we look back, we have to look at where we've come, okay? To put it all in perspective, okay? So over the past 80 years, researchers have discovered much more about the Earth's atmosphere, how it behaves. That's an important element there. Many additional real-time observation points. You know the weather just about anywhere on the planet.
It's right there in the palm of your hand.
Absolutely. Improved weather radar, from conventional radar to Doppler radar, and now dual polarization radar, gives us a 3-dimensional view of precipitation. I mean, just amazing technology. And of course, we have satellite imagery. We feed all this information into our computer models. They're very high resolution. They're updated frequently. We have a lot. But the problem is, back in 1944, there wasn't much, okay? And that's where we begin. Yeah, there were thermometers, barometers, anemometers, so we knew about air pressure and temperatures and wind direction and speed, and we had our eyes to look up and see, and we could relay this information via radio or via telephone, okay? There was some limited upper air information from pilots, and they had a few weather balloons, but not many observation points, okay? But here was really the bottom line. Mostly relied on the experience of forecasters. And there was something that fortunately had happened in the world of weather about 25 years earlier.
Really?
The Norwegian cyclone model was surmised. And what it did was, it finally, meteorologists at the time were finally able to visualize areas of low pressure and discover that they spin counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, pulling warm air northward, cold air southward, developing warm fronts, cold fronts. All of this was lifted. Condensation, you get clouds, you get precipitation. So it was like the big light bulb that came up. So they had that. And in fact, Chris, I was able to find the weather map from June 5th, okay? So originally, it was going to be June 5th.
That's right.
But it was pushed ahead one day, because of the weather.
Because of the weather.
So here are some observation points, or just to help you realize where you are. But there's Normandy, okay? Now notice there's a frontal boundary, okay? That was the 4th. That was June 4th, where they had horrendous weather, and they were all like, oh, what are we going to do? June 5th was still pretty bad, but the forecasters, knowing the Norwegian cyclone model, said, I bet we're going to have at least some clearing or better weather, less wind. And it worked. It worked.
It was June 6th.
It worked with what they had.
And
Yeah.
remember, that kept all those soldiers, everything was loaded on the ships. They had to wait it out
Yep.
for an extra day. Brad, thanks so much for
You
turning
bet.
back the clock for us.
bet.
When we come back, a special Need to See to cap off this special edition of Action 2 News at 4:30.
Need to See. Sponsored by Rebath Green Bay, a full-service bathroom remodeler. Call today.
2 years ago, I visited Normandy. That's a bucket list item for me as a World War II history buff. It is a moving and powerful experience, and we finished our tour that day at the American Cemetery overlooking the beaches. We finish our special program today the same way they finish each day, on that hallowed ground.